It's not something you can fully understand what it feels like until it's happening to you.
Yeah, I would imagine so. That when a bunch of people are saying, hey, we hate the show you're in and you didn't do a good job acting, yeah, that probably hurts your feelings. I'm not going to take that from her. That probably hurts her feelings. Yeah. Is it deserved? Yes. Yes, because she got a bunch of money to be an actor in a Star Wars show and she didn't do a good job. And it's not just her, it's the entire writing team. It's the creator, Leslie Headland. It's Lucasfilm. Amandla Stenberg is responding to the cancellation of the Acolyte season 2. And what she has to say honestly just kind of makes her seem pretty foolish, in my opinion, and just overall cringy. It's just very cringe, the things and the ignorance that she has to say. Literally, her point is to make everyone who is critical of the show seem ignorant, right? But ultimately, it just comes down to she's ignorant. It just sounds kind of nuts. So I'm going to play through this and I'm not going to watch the whole thing. It's 8 minutes. And the comments that are really off color are cushioned in between her rambling about, being really appreciative to be a part of Star Wars and that it was just a dream of hers and whatnot. But ultimately, it's pretty obvious that she's not a fan of Star Wars fans or the IP. She's just a fan of people who like to see her on screen, right? She's just a fan of people who praise her, even though it is unearned. So I'm going to start about a minute in and I'll probably skip ahead a little bit. But yeah, just know it's just a lot of rambling. And so, yeah, we'll just get into this.
Of course, I live in the bubble of my own reality, but for those who aren't aware, there's...
Oh, and by the way, this 8 minutes of her doing her hair. And I know this is like a weird trend where people are like doing videos while eating and doing their hair and putting on makeup. It's super, that's another level of cringe. The disrespect to be like, I'm going to thank all these people for letting me be on the show and that it was a real dream of mine. And I'm going to call out the people who are critical and racist and whatnot, that she brings that up. But I don't care enough to like, I don't know, set up a camera or do an official thing or like even just pull out her phone like she did here, but actually focus on what she has to say. She basically says the equivalent of something that should be said in like 2.5 minutes, but it's just rambling because she's busy doing her hair. That's so disrespectful, in my opinion, that no, if she was thanking like Leslie Headland and the Star Wars people for letting her on the show, well, at the same time, it's a slap in the face because all you get is her spare time while she's doing her hair, her, partial attention, right?
There's been a rampage of vitriol that we have faced since the show was even announced, when it was still just a concept and no one had even seen it.
That's lies. There was nobody talking about the Acolyte outside of like Star Wars theory, maybe a few people on Reddit, but nothing that got any traction until the trailer came out. Like we saw the Acolyte was announced, but we didn't know what it was. We heard that it had to do with the dark side. We didn't know what it was. I've been talking about movies for like 4-5 years. We didn't even bother talking about the Acolyte because nobody was talking about it till the trailer came out. Anyway.
And that's when we started experiencing a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry.
Okay.
And vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language.
Notice she's just going through like all of the buzzwords that she's heard at, when her and her progressive friends go out to get coffee, right? Like she drops the word conservative in there with like bigotry. And those are not even the same thing. Like she sounds foolish because even if you are not in conservative politics or have conservative values, most people understand that conservative does not mean bigoted. It does not mean bigotry. It's literally just a set of ideas that has nothing to do with racism. It mostly has to do with economics, if we're being honest. The word conservative does not fit in there. So it just shows her ignorance and her bias towards anybody that's not essentially like Hollywood liberals, honestly.
Towards us.
Also, she thinks that everybody that's outside of her political ideology were the ones that were attacking the show, and at the same time are also horrible racist people.
And, this really affected me when I first got the job, because it's just not something, even though I anticipated it happening,
You anticipated it happening because maybe you read the script and you knew it wasn't good, or you just go through life expecting everybody who looks at you to have a hateful thought towards you. And that's not the case. Outside of the fact that you were not emoting for your characters, Osha and May, in The Acolyte, there wasn't any hate directed at you. There wasn't any hate directed at the fact that you're a Black character. Star Wars has had plenty of diversity. That has never been the case. It is literally just buzzwords that she's been, encouraged to repeat, probably not by Disney, because I don't think Disney's that stupid to attack fan bases and call them names when, they own an IP, and they're also aware that fans didn't like the show. That's why they canceled it. But the fact that she is literally being encouraged by probably her liberal friends to repeat this or to say these things or to have these opinions that are just flat out wrong. There's no racism in saying the show was garbage, because it was. There's no racism in saying that the people who wrote the show don't know how to write or even respect Star Wars as an IP, because at the end of the day, it was a complete slap in the face and a complete disrespectful project towards Star Wars as an IP and the Star Wars fan base, because Star Wars fan base has been, especially, in certain circles like Star Wars theory, has been very forgiving of Disney Star Wars. There's more cynical groups, and I would probably fall in them, that says I haven't seen a good thing outside of Mando season 1 and season 2 and Andor that I like that's come out of Disney Star Wars. So I'm very skeptical. I kind of went into this knowing it probably wasn't going to be good, but I was blown away by how bad it was. This is on the same level as Kenobi for me, because Kenobi was just so incredibly terrible, and The Acolyte was even worse. It was so unenjoyable.
it's not something you can fully understand what it feels like until it's happening to you.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I would imagine so, that when a bunch of people are saying, hey, we hate the show you're in and you didn't do a good job acting, yeah, that probably hurts your feelings. I'm not going to take that from her. That probably hurts her feelings. Yeah. Is it deserved? Yes. Yes, because she got a bunch of money to be an actor in a Star Wars show, and she didn't do a good job. And it's not just her, it's the entire writing team. It's the creator, Leslie Headland. It's Lucasfilm. They're the ones that failed the fans, and you are a piece of that. But let's not forget, I'll come back around to it, but she stirred the pot as The Acolyte was coming out. She stirred the pot with the fans. She poked the bear a bit.
However, I feel like I've kind of moved through those feelings in various ways, including being vocal about it.
And when she's saying being vocal about it, let's not forget the fact that she went on The View, right? And had a few words to say about how she welcomes criticism, but not, the racism, which ultimately what I saw online, and I watched a lot online and read a lot online that was critical of the show. I didn't see racism. I saw people saying the show sucks. The show was written horribly. It's not correct to lore. It's not an interesting Star Wars story, and it doesn't even make sense linearly. It literally is like poorly written storytelling, and the dialogue is horrible.
All the time. You have received horrific racist backlash, including threats.
And this is while the show was coming out, by the way. She went on The View.
And what you call intolerable racism, that is your quote. Can you talk about that a little bit? And what has that been like?
Yeah, I wouldn't be so eager to talk to someone in their early 20s about life experience when it comes to racism. Because first off, she's completely getting it wrong. She's saying that what the Star Wars fans did to her was racism. She clearly doesn't understand what true racism looks like. I don't understand what true racism looks like. She obviously doesn't. Like, she's the wrong person to be asking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you giving me the space to speak about it. It's been very painful.
Yeah, because no one else would.
For me, it's not something that I think you can emotionally prepare for. And we welcome criticism of the show when.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't welcome criticism of the show because you got a lot of honest criticism that, especially at the beginning, was not mean-spirited outside of the fact that you guys spent a ton of money on something that sucks. There was no personal attacks because of the color of your skin. Let me also say, she did also stir the pot with this. You guys remember this? She released a diss track while the show was rolling out. When people were saying they didn't like the show, she was releasing a diss track at the fans. Now, there's some stuff in here about Trevor Noah as well. And I'm not going to say that it was all geared towards the fans, but it was because the show, like, she wouldn't have released this if the show wasn't, you know, receiving as much negative attention as it was.
Splice lines, make it, they recognize, make it look.
By the way, this is garbage. This is not fun to listen to, and I don't want to listen to it anymore. Let's skip forward a little bit, because she brings in this other term that is honestly very ridiculous to even bring up, because again, it's more clearly seeing, like, she's exposing her ignorance when it comes to not only the world of, like, social justice, but she's exposing her ignorance in the world of movie making, what she is supposedly working her career in, right?
Because I'll just feel a lot of levity and joy around the fact that I got to experience it.
But yeah, you're doing your hair, so obviously you're so thankful, but you don't have time to make an actual video thanking the people. You have to be doing your hair while you're doing this.
And that people loved it, and
who loved it?
That people were so responsive.
People who are not Star Wars fans like this show. And listen to what she has to say.
Poured through a lot of different iterations of fan art and ship art and fan theories and things that were just...
Okay, so she said fan art, and then she exposed herself by saying ship art. So it wasn't about Star Wars fans making art. It was people who are like Swifties and fans of, I don't know, the Twilight Saga. I'm not gonna hate on the Twilight Saga. Look, I didn't care for it, but it was interesting. However, Star Wars is not Twilight, and she's basically saying she got a bunch of ship art, right, and fan theories. I'm gonna guess those fan theories are around, you know, sexual related things when it comes to Chimere and Osha. She exposed herself by basically saying this was a show about seduction. This was like hinting at, you know, 50 Shades of Grey for Star Wars. She obviously, that's the people who watched this show. And that's what all the articles that were praising the show was about. Because no one was like, everybody who is a fan of Star Wars were like, I'm not going to say this is bad. Like, have like a kind of, you know, love story or whatever that's really focused on the romance and kind of the weird nature of like the bad boy and stuff. That's not negative, but it's never been a part of Star Wars, because Star Wars is about Star Wars. It's a story about wars in space and politics. And yes, there is some love stories in there, but that's a very side kind of thing. And this just took it to a weird place. The people who like those kind of stories watch this, and not the actual Star Wars fans.
So beautiful and filled my heart with joy. And I just want to let those people know out there who supported us in that way, and supported us vocally, despite and in the face of all of the
Okay.
vitriol that we received and the kind of the targeted attack, I would say.
Targeted attack, yeah, because you made a Star Wars show that sucked. You're gonna get the attention of people who care. That's not targeted. That is truly just receiving criticism because you were in a show that's a part of an IP that is way, way bigger than yourself or anything that comes out of, the super liberal Hollywood.
We received by the alt-right.
We received by the alt-right. So everybody who hates the show, everybody who wrote a social media post about it, created a video about it, wrote something on Reddit, wrote a comment, talking about how the show sucks or something negative about the show. In her opinion, it's a targeted attack from you people who are the alt-right. That's what she's getting at. That's what lives in her brain. The only people that enjoyed this were kind of the people who were like, oh, I ship Chimere and Osha and I'm doing fan art and fan theories about their sexual relationship and stuff. That's the people who watch the show, not Star Wars fans. It's so obvious that is the case that anybody who buys into this half thought out point that she's making is ridiculous. I mean, they're just not living in reality. They just want their opinions to be embedded into Star Wars and not actually create a Star Wars show. They want their messages. They want all the politics of today's world. They just want everything that's like so kind of gross to be brought into a beloved IP like this. It has nothing to do with the real world, but has everything to do with good versus evil, has everything to do with, enslavement. And I'm not talking about American enslavement because there's no slaves in America. But I'm just talking about the real world politics being brought into Star Wars is cringy and it's not a good look. And even after the fact, when the show gets canceled because people genuinely didn't like it, you have the audacity to call them bigots and alt-right. And you also drop conservative in there. Like that's also a bad word. Maybe in some groups it's a bad word, but that's not even what conservative means. Yeah. Someone needs to get hold of Amandla and be like, hey, you're pretty young. You need to stop going on The View. You need to stop making diss tracks at the fans and you need to stop doing your hair, sharing your opinions. Because if you keep doing this, you're not going to be working in Hollywood very long. It's just bad look. There's money behind these faces. That's why these faces have to keep their mouth shut or they can really get in trouble. It's the same thing that's happening with Rachel Zegler and Snow White. It's the exact same thing. And maybe she's going to eventually Rachel Zegler might, close her mouth. But someone needs to get a hold of these young girls and just be like, listen, if you want to talk as recklessly as you're talking about a beloved IP like Star Wars and the fan base of Star Wars when you were the lead actor of a Star Wars show. Well, if you want to talk reckless, you just can't be a part of it. That's what I would say. I would be like, look, this is in our NDAs. That's what I would say. Don't talk reckless. Let the show speak for itself. If people don't like it, move on. That's what I would say, because that's the truth of the situation. There was not a targeted attack because of the color of her skin. And yet she makes it about that. So I don't know. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about Amandla Stenberg's comments. They're kind of wild, honestly. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about it. Did you like the Acolyte show? And did you, if you did you participate in any of that ship art that she was talking about? And also, if you did enjoy the show, do you feel respected and, like she was genuinely thankful to you, that she wanted to say thank you while she has is doing her hair and not really paying attention to anything. She's just kind of like, oh, this is my free time. I don't have any time to actually look at the camera and focus on the people I'm trying to thank and actually do it with my whole attention, do it with all my attention. She's just got to kind of do it while she's doing her hair. You know what I mean? It's a weird look. I don't like it. It's cringy. And that's about all I had to say about that.